Radio. You're with GB News, the People's Channel, where now it's time for headliners.
My thanks to the brilliant Polly Middlehurst. I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Headliners, your first look at tomorrow's papers. Tonight in the company of the brilliant comedians Steve N. Allen and Nick Dixon. Let's take a look at tomorrow's front pages, and we start with the Daily Mail. And as you would imagine, there's really only one story in town. Could Boris and Rishi now unite to save the Tories? Senior Conservatives are trying to broker a face-to-face meeting between Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak in a bid to end the bloodletting currently engulfing the party. The Daily Telegraph next. Sunak races to secure majority of Tory MPs, and Mordaunt puts focus on talent for leadership run, arguing that her cabinet will be a cabinet of all the talents, reflecting the broad ideological church that is the Tory party. Meanwhile, The Guardian go with the headline, Tory tribes go to war. Boris Johnson set for leadership bid, despite warnings it will plunge the party into fresh chaos. Rishi Sunak remains the current favourite to win as Penny Mordaunt throws her hat into the ring. FT weekend, could the Tory turmoil get even worse? Johnson cannot be allowed the last laugh, says their journalist, their columnist Camilla Cavendish. Meanwhile, investors and MPs alarmed by idea of Johnson's return to number 10. At the Daily Mirror, Johnson holiday exclusive. Surely not again. Disgraced ex-PM flies in to worm way back to number 10. The Times now, Johnson will prove fatal. William Hague warns of Tory death spiral and calls former PM's return worst idea for 46 years. Daily Express, Boris, I'm up for it. We are going to do this. And The Star, last but not least, providing much needed light relief, but it is the same story. Bozo back at number 10. They've tossed aside the lettuce. Now they're serving up the aubergine. Just when you thought all salad-based puns had been exhausted, posh aubergine Bozo Johnson has emerged as one of the favourites to replace Lettuce Liz as PM. And those are your front pages. And we'll start with the front page of the Daily Mail. And Steve N. Allen, is Boris back?
It could well be. And not only back, the dream team, because technically nightmares are dreams. Could Boris and Rishi now unite to save the Tories? You know, like when every so often you get Magneto and Professor X have to team up to fight some other mutants. It's that kind of mashup, you know, when plot lines get really desperate. And I was speaking with someone earlier today who was saying the thing about Boris being the new Boris Johnson possibly being the PM again is that it does answer the question of, oh, but you have no mandate. We need another general election. No one voted for you. I suppose that solves it. He's proven that he can win elections. He's also proven that he acts in a way that means he has to resign as Prime Minister. Very few people have been Prime Minister, but fewer people have had to resign as Prime Minister. So he's in that very small, select bunch of people I'm not necessarily sure you want to be back in. But instead of the battle between the two ones, the Rishi and Boris, if they team up in some way, then maybe that solves this problem. Although I was watching the TV earlier on, and you were on it. And you were talking about the numbers that Rishi's already got. Do you know, if he's ahead number-wise, why would he compromise in a way that gives him the subordinate position? So maybe it won't turn out this way.
The thinking is, and you're right to raise that point, because you know he's already played second fiddle to Boris Johnson once already. Of course, stood down as Chancellor in Boris Johnson's administration. But the thinking is that if Boris gets 100 Tory MPs, and if Rishi does, then when those two names go to the membership, it's Boris all the way. So this is the concern for Rishi Sunak, is if Boris hits the threshold, at that point Sunak probably has to do a deal to save his political career.
Yeah, because it's not as if the numbers are going to change. You know, these people have already been sampled once, and we now know what they think about Rishi Sunak. But it just... it would feel like maybe it's worth a roll of the dice just to see, because you're right, he'd be going back to exactly the same position. Not like he could ever then use that as a position to mature to Prime Minister ever again. So why not roll the dice and see whether you actually win?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? That's a tantalising question. Nick Dixon, this is a sliding doors moment for the Tory party. Sunak or Boris Johnson, it's the ultimate yellow brick road, isn't it?
Yeah, to me it has to be Boris, Mark, because, and not to be mistaken for what I would ultimately want in a dream world, by the way, because people reply to me on Twitter and say, what's wrong with you? You know, I would like a new party that I lead, but in the real world, Boris is the only option, because I think they had no moral right to get rid of him in the first place, because the people voted for him. And then they did this coup. It was the Rishi coup. The members rejected it. As you say, they voted for basically anyone but Rishi. They would have liked Kemi, I'm sure, but they were given Liz Truss, and they said, fine, not Rishi. So now, the only thing they can do to save themselves, potentially, I say potentially because they'll still probably lose, but to avoid a complete wipeout of the election, I think, is to bring back Boris. I think it has to be. And he's apparently reached out to Sunak. Last I heard, Sunak hadn't replied, so he may be less up for it. But to me, that's their only option. The only downside is that Boris could be investigated and lose a by-election. So there is that, which is pretty significant. But I think that's what they have to do. And I would actually add a caveat. I would say they've got Boris in a more weakened position now. He's desperate to come back, I imagine. Tell him no carry anywhere near number 10 and shake on that. And I think he'd go for it.
There you go, the no carry rule. That's a red line for Nick Dixon. Let's now take a look at the Mail once again. And Penny Mordaunt, Nick, could she do it?
Yes, they've gone. Penny Mordaunt becomes the first Tory hopeful to officially launch a leadership bid. She's launched. Now, last I heard, Mark, on your show, was that she had 25 backers.
You guys got nothing better to do, by the way.
The remote control was broke.
Clearly trapped in a loveless marriage, at least one of you.
It's a great show. But last I heard, Rishi had 96 and Boris had 68. I don't know if we've updated on that.
Yeah, so
keep watching. He was
exactly. Stay with us live, courtesy of Guido Fawkes' website. Currently, 103 Conservative MPs are supporting Rishi Sunak, which means he's passed the threshold.
Oh, I see.
He's the first name on the team sheet for the membership vote next week.
OK, I was busy preparing for the show and I missed that. But yeah, I mean, you know, Mordaunt's in this interesting position. She can bow out and do some sort of deal, or she can try to go to the end and win. Obviously, she's not going to win. I assume she'll do some sort of deal. And she's in quite a strong position in that sense. I don't know if she can influence, if she can then give her people to someone else. I don't know if she's in that position, but she can certainly strike a deal and get the jobs that she wants, basically.
Well, it's an interesting one. It's always good for your profile just to run, isn't it? You throw your hat into the ring. She could, however, perhaps like Liz Truss, win by default, because if Boris Johnson doesn't hit that threshold of 100, then you have to wonder whether those Boris votes would go to Mordaunt rather than Sunak.
Yeah, because it's the same people who've been sampled last time, and they were willing to vote for Liz Truss, and look what you did there. It's very easy with hindsight, isn't it? Oh, it's still at 2020. One of the issues with Penny Mordaunt is the lack of experience. But I think it's 80-something days that she's been in a cabinet position. These days, she's one of the elders. She's lasted so much longer than most of the names that we saw. But the point you make about running is good because it raises your profile. I think that's the taint of Jeremy Hunt, is that because he ran and lost so many times, I had to slow down. Those words were definitely steering me towards never being able to do Channel 4 News ever again. But, yeah, so that would be the problem there.
Yes, indeed. Well, look, we'll get to that Channel 4 News story shortly, but well done for getting Jeremy Hunt's name perfectly right. Turning to Saturday's Guardian now, and Liz Truss's goodbye salary is quite a golden goodbye, isn't it, Steve?
It's not bad. So the headline is about how Starmer's saying she shouldn't take it. Loads of people are saying she shouldn't take it because she shouldn't take it. 44 days in a job, if that were a normal job, you'd still be on the probationary part of the contract. You wouldn't get sick pay. So, unbelievably, she gets benefits because she was the PM for a short time of, they're quoting this, 115K. That's a lot of money every year for the rest of life. It would be the best paid 44 days of work anyone's ever achieved. I don't think she will take it because it's bad optics, as the young people say. Surely it's better for some rich Tory donors to say, look, I'll give you that money every year. Just don't take it, otherwise we look really bad. During a cost of living crisis, those words, explaining that people can't afford to live, meanwhile she's, I'll have a bit of that.
Yeah, would you take the money, Nick Dixon? What a silly question.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would, but whether she should is a separate question.
You'd take it even if you hadn't been Prime Minister.
Well, I would last so much longer, though. I would be one of the all-time great Prime Ministers. So,
I've heard you last.
That would be different. I mean, like, for example, She probably shouldn't take it, but if it was Thatcher, I think it'd be reasonable. 10-year, you know, a 10-year minimum would be quite a good rule. Then it's like a pension.
Yeah.
Come on. So I think Thatcher should have got it, but yeah, Truss maybe not, because if she lives, I mean, what, it's 115,000 a year. So if she lives about 30 years, like 3.5 million roughly. So
Well, she'll live at least, hopefully, 30 years. She's
Well, exactly.
47. That would take her to 77.
Well, there you go. And you know, this idea that it's for office and secretarial costs. I suppose if she's still in public office in some you know capacity, maybe she does need that. But yes, I think most people will be saying that she shouldn't take, and I think that's fair. In general, though, aside from this, I do think the Prime Minister should probably be paid more. It's basically the most important job in the country, probably. So they're sort of like the CEO of the country, so surely they should be paid accordingly, rather than have to get these weird little expenses.
But this is not one of those scratch card lottery things. Would you rather get a monthly payment or a yearly payment or the lump sum? The lump sum is what we talk about. Oh, how much does the Prime Minister get paid every year? Forget about when they're Prime Minister. Look at what they get for the rest of their life.
Well, that's true. I mean, Boris has been doing speeches in New York, getting $350,000 to say some nonsense about climate change.
I mean, on that point, do you think that Liz Truss will be writing a book like Cameron did? I mean, it'd better be a pamphlet at 44 days. And will she still be in public life, giving her, you know, experience?
There's apparently going to be a book about it. Do you not hear Starmer's thing where he said out by Christmas is that the release date or the title? A rare good
Harry
quip
Cole,
from Starmer.
Sun political editor, I think, has co-written a book with the Spectator's diary editor, and they're going to have to do some swift rewrites. But yeah, it's a short read, let's put it that way. I just wonder whether she's been treated so badly, Steve, that she's within her rights to go, you know what, I've had a miserable 44 days. I'm a figure of public shame now. I'm going to take the bloody money as compensation.
No, I know, because who caused these things? That pesky Chancellor for agreeing with the policies of, who was it again? He came up with these ideas during a leadership campaign? No, a lot of that fault lies on her. I don't think we should pillory the poor woman for the rest of her life, but I don't think you can say I deserve the money because I'm the punchline of joke.
But isn't it a hassle being a former Prime Minister, and don't you need that money as compensation, Nick Dick?
It's a total hassle, Max. It's been a nightmare for me, but yeah.
Well, when you move on from headliners in many years to come, when you get headhunted by, I don't know, Babe Station maybe?
I see what you mean, Mark. I feel
you'll have the burden of being an ex-headliner. You'll need security.
I have a lot of sympathy for her. I think people are being very mean to her. There's the lettuce thing, lettuce gate. It's all very mean. She's been through a tough time. I'm not sure if she's been through 115 grand a year tough time, but maybe 10 grand. She gets it anyway, doesn't she? As part of, there's a different payout where you get about 19,000, isn't there? That's all right. I could live with that.
Yeah.
I can just focus on Nick Dixon on Babe Station, I tell you. I can imagine the ratings go through the roof.
Can you wave your phone at a camera? Let's see if you can good at it.
Just ease yourself in with like an OnlyFans account and see where it goes next. Away from Westminster now, and Saturday's Independent, and the Rwanda refugee scheme has a slight spanner in the works. Nick, tell me more.
Yes, the airline hired by the UK to move refugees to Rwanda have pulled out. This is privileged style, they're called, and due to basically a mixture of... Basically, Twitter has made them pull out. This is what we have now, a mixture of Twitter and the ECHR means that we can't do our immigration policies anymore. This is the world we're in. This Freedom from Torture Association put a lot of pressure on them, and they've said, look, we didn't have anything to do with it. They've sent a letter saying, we haven't flown anyone out, we've changed our minds, leave us alone. And this is the world we're in now. The social pressure, social media campaigns and general activism stops people doing stuff.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything wrong, Steve and Alan, with... sending people who have entered the country illegally to a third location in which their pursuit of asylum is processed?
I mean, if the idea of it is to be a deterrent, I don't think that it will be working, because all the headlines you see about it would be reassuring people, don't worry, you won't be being sent to Rwanda. This is a failure of a policy that may have been brought in, was indeed, aimed to be a deterrent. It definitely isn't.
Yes.
I mean, in some ways, part of the problem is the fact that the airline's called Privileged Style. I'd love to see the advert. Why not be deported in style? Come and see the excellent plane as you're deported.
I think they're Spanish, so it would be... Can you do that in Spanish?
No, I've got one voiceover.
Is it worth entering the country illegally just for that lovely experience for a few hours?
Yeah,
you watch an in-flight movie. It's probably a couple of small bags of nuts.
But at
drinks.
At the same time, it's a win that they managed to get an airline to do it for a while, because let's not forget those heady days of Chris Grayling having a ferry company. They didn't have any ferries, get a contract. So, improvement. At least these guys had planes.
Although I understand that they were going to use Ryanair, but the government decided they didn't want them to suffer to that extent.
Well, Ryanair keep banning people. Did you see their tweet today? They had a picture of Boris, and like with a ban sign over him, and said, "We will not be helping Boris return." They keep banning people on a whim. They got very political now, Ryanair, and they're very above their station for a sort of budget airline. They seem to be dictating our politics now. But can I just say one thing I've got to add? That this policy is going to be very hard to get through now. What with privileged style backing out, and what with the Suella Braverman resigning / getting sacked. And this was her dream, as she said, to enact this policy. So are we actually ever going to enact this immigration policy?
She's
Looks
going to
unlikely.
off her own buck, by this. If that's her dream, then you've
Just
got
do
to
it privately.
Pursue it, yeah.
As a start-up. Kick out people to Rwanda.com.
It's not bad. She might do it.
It's got a certain ring to it. Last for this section, let's have a look at Saturday's Telegraph and big developments in the US. Nick? Former Trump aide.
Yeah, Steve Bannon jailed for contempt of Congress. So there was talk of him even getting 2 years, but he's actually got 4 months in prison, and he has to pay $6,500. And this is for refusing to comply with the investigation about Jan 6th and Trump and all that business. And he's basically not played ball with the whole thing. He doesn't really recognise it as legitimate. He's refused to sit for a deposition and provide documents. And he was quite bullish about it. He said that the judgment day is November 8th for Biden and the illegitimate administration. And he also said, take down the CCP, which is a thing he likes to say. And, Bannon's tough. He's ex-Navy. He's a fighter. He believes in his cause. So he's the kind of guy, he is prepared to go to jail for the cause. But we see what's happening is, let's be honest, the Biden administration is using lawfare. They've attacked Roger Stone. They sent the FBI in or whatever it was. They've attacked Peter Navarro. They had him in leg irons, which was totally absurd. Trump with the Mar-a-Lago raid, Bannon with this. It's just it's using everything you can to take out your political opponents, is it not?
Sounds like it. There you go. Well, that story's going to run and run. That's it for part one. Coming up in part two, we've got female far-righters, ironic anti-sexist workplace advice, and deep porn scares. If that doesn't get you tuning in, nothing will. See you shortly.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around. With all the biggest topics and guests, you will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, We're
on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back to part two of Headliners with me, Mark Dolan, your first look at tomorrow's papers. Tonight in the company of the ever-hilarious Steve N. Allen and Nick Dixon. Let's get back to tomorrow's front pages. And let's have a look at Saturday's Financial Times and a switch up to Italian politics. Steve, what's happening over in Europe?
Well, there's good news for those people who say, you know what, we should have more women being prime ministers. Don't ask us about it right now, really awkward timing.
A bit sensitive.
Yeah, this Meloni, Giorgia Meloni, is sworn in as Italy's first woman prime minister. Her party previously won, so this story effectively broke. It's just the technical swearing in that's happening now. This was last month when they won the elections. So well done, women. She's called... They say far right, and this is where all the debates, I can see this is where it's going to go. Everyone argues about the far part of the far right. How right do you think is far right? As a party, it has precedents of coming from the far right, but it was watered down somewhat, made more centrist, didn't travel that far. But the debate would be, is that because she realised if you want to win, maybe you do have to shave off the edges? Will those edges still stay shaved off now that she's got the power? Time will tell. But the wheels are coming off already as there's some infighting. Berlusconi called her someone you can't get along with. And he's pretty good at getting along with women. So, I don't know, let's see what happens.
Absolutely brilliant with women. Sergio Berlusconi, for goodness sakes, and I know that I've got personal experience of it. But the issue is that this is an experiment for Italian politics, isn't it? And a flirtation with the right.
Not the first flirtation with the right, I'm sure. Let's think about Italian history. Was there ever a time when someone slightly right-leaning? Interesting.
Another populistic...
And if you think fascism is on the right, of course, some people would argue it's a left-wing collectivist ideology, but we don't have time for that tonight. But it is interesting that everyone calls her far right. Even the Daily Mail, who are getting quite lefty these days. Someone pointed out to me the other day that journalists tend to be lefty people, and even the ones writing for the Mail, this was someone in the biz. And they've gone with far right, which even Italy don't describe as. They call us centro-destra, centre-right. So obviously, yeah, they definitely had the post-Mussolini roots, and they changed in like the late 90s, which is, for English people, that seems a bit recent. So I totally get your point. But most people think of her as centre-right. But it's interesting. This is a warning about proportional representation, the nightmare that they've had doing anything. Berlusconi called her opinionated, domineering, arrogant and offensive. Mark had a similar issue last week with someone calling him that, but we sorted it behind the scenes. But they have 19 parliamentary parties, and she's the first properly elected leader in 14 years. So when people say, we want proportional representation in the UK, you're like, have a look at Italy, and maybe it's not the best idea.
Yeah, I know. It's an imponderable, isn't it? But we watch with interest as to how things develop in Italian politics. Saturday's Telegraph now, and interesting advice from a group of lawyers, Nick.
Well, this comes from Sir Geoffrey Voss, a senior judge, and he says that white male lawyers should think twice before talking about sport at work to avoid excluding women. Thus, in one brilliant sentence, being sexist and racist at the same time. He's saying women don't understand sport and white men are bad. So that was quite brilliant. Actually, he was sexist on two levels because he's having to go at white men, and he's saying women don't understand sport.
Let me guess, he's a white man as well.
Well, I haven't even checked, but it's so obviously true, definite, isn't it? And he also says they shouldn't talk about elite universities. And then he goes on to say that this will alienate women and ethnic minority lawyers. It's like, you're not quite the legend you think. You've stepped in about 5 different faux pas there. I mean, ridiculous. We don't need this kind of nonsense advice. It's amazing how open people are about just saying white as a pejorative while thinking they're doing something good, which they're clearly not.
But don't worry, he managed to get all 4, because the full quote is saying that these conversations can exclude women and ethnic minorities. Oh, yeah, there's no links between ethnic minorities and sport. Surely they barely ever play. But it's bizarre it is obviously terrible. It's wrong to presume that women don't like sport and to patronise them as if, oh, you're a woman, you couldn't possibly tell someone I'm not interested in this conversation on your own. However, having said all of this, I'd love it if people shut up about sport, because I don't like it. So it'd be nice if there was a
white noise for you when people talk about the Premier League and things like that.
And the year that a team did a thing.
But I also get uncomfortable when you talk about your elite schools, Steve, which is something he says here as well.
Here's a thought.
I know we both went to college.
Well, who cares if any groups are excluded from certain topics in a conversation? I know nothing about cricket, so if it's raised in the office, then they lose me. So be it. I'll just go and make a cup of tea. Why have we got to include everyone on everything?
Well, I don't think we necessarily have. I think you're presuming we should listen to this judge. Oh, an old judge who's slightly out of touch.
But that sentiment feels common in many of our institutions these days.
But find someone who's actually fired for talking about... you mentioned football in the office. Nah.
It's a good point.
People aren't incapable of saying I'm...
I know what you mean, but I'll never forget the time, and it was a couple of years ago, and I was at a gig, and a stand-up comedy gig, and the amplifier was not set correctly, so the sound was just ridiculous. And I could see you've got your treble, your bass, and the promoter was a female promoter and a good comedian. And so I said, I've done this to the amp so that it sounds better. And she accused me of mansplaining. And I just thought, well, no, I've just explained to you what I did with the amp, and it wasn't related to your gender. But don't you think that's where we are?
But you were a man at the time, Mark.
It's a good point.
Before the transition.
But also, how did you do it? Did you put your leg up on the amp and go, listen, darling?
I did, actually.
Yeah, that's
Correct.
probably why, yeah.
Correct.
But Mark, he says he has to be more inclusive. I think you're right, though. Inclusivity is a problem. Aren't things better when they're exclusive? Don't you, who wants to join an inclusive club, right? Isn't exclusivity better than inclusivity?
No.
Why do you pay more for it? If it's like a club or first class or something, you wouldn't go to somebody and say, oh, inclusive event. You want something that's exclusive, be honest.
No, I'm from the north. I ain't paying for first class anyway. No, I disagree with that. So if you follow your logic, and I'm hoping that was more of a joke than actually, no, we should only have conversations using terms that only people from a certain school know.
That's my position.
OK. Change.
It's one of his great positions. Turning to Saturday's Metro now, and have Kanye West's actions finally cost him a bit more than his reputation, Steve?
Possibly. I'm aware that my knowledge of Kanye West is nowhere near as much as my right honourable friend over here. But, because when we were doing Ministry of Offence, there was an episode where you had to school me in the way of yay?
Yeah, you've already got his name wrong. It's Ye, so you've already been quite offensive. And they've got it wrong. They've called him Kanye West twice. It's Ye.
Oh, so Kanye West.
Just Ye.
See where it comes from now. Was axed from this Balenciaga label thing amid this... It's difficult to know really what's going on with him. So he did an Instagram post where he said he was going to go DEFCON 3 on Jewish people, and then didn't know why that would be offensive. He's made some comments as well about the situation, the incident that led up to George Floyd's death. But he's also in the past talked about his own mental health issues, so I'm not sure how much I feel comfortable in getting stuck in and having a good go mocking him, because it feels like he's having a difficult time post-divorce and things. But in an interview, he both managed to double down on his DEFCON 3 comments and apologise for it at the same time. But apologised for it by saying, there was a thing where accused of it being racist. Yes, that's why I said it. I fought fire with fire. I'm not here to get hosed down. I've stood at that one for a while. I don't really know what any of that means.
No.
Yes. Obviously, the anti-Semitism stuff is very bad. I wrote an article about this when Ice Cube did it, when he got into Louis Farrakhan, and that sounds like Kanye's gone down a similar route. Louis Farrakhan, who's very anti-Semitic and also thinks white people were made in a lab, so he hates white people as well. So yeah, he's gone down a bizarre rabbit hole there, and that's very bad. On the George Floyd stuff that he's getting sued for by the family, in that case, all he was doing was quoting from Candace Owens' recent film, which I've watched, and raises some very interesting factual things, or certainly arguable things. So I think they're on dodgy ground there suing him for that, but the other stuff, I don't know what he's up to.
The Times now, and a different type of a penalty might be occurring at the upcoming Qatar World Cup, Nick.
Yeah, World Cup fans warned of serious penalties for breaking Qatari alcohol law, so drunken behaviour is not generally tolerated in Qatar. You can imagine how well that's going to go for England fans. I mean, another reason not to hold it in Qatar. We've already got all the deaths of the people that made the stadiums. Then we've got the whole being gay is illegal. Now they've added can't drink, and they're going to have 1 million visitors squeezed into a country smaller than Yorkshire and telling them they can't drink, and they're England fans. Can you imagine, Mark? I mean, it's better if they do have some drinks, or it's going to go absolutely mental either way. So, yeah, I don't know why they held it in Qatar, but the idea of that, please don't drink, England fans, is it going to work? No.
No, it's not going to work. It's going to be absolutely terrible. Yeah. I mean, they've just about managed to fix the issue about the temperature. The whole idea was really bad. I'm not normally into describing things as, what do they call it, sports washing or whatever the phrase is. Yeah. But this really looks like it. They have so much money that you actually can buy hosting a World Cup, even though it will be rubbish for the footballers, for the fans, for absolutely everyone involved. But there's enough money there that they're suddenly on the in crowd. Look, we're fun. We have football over here. But you don't have drinking. You don't let people be gay.
What are they going to do with those stadia when the tournament's over as well?
Oh, I wouldn't do what you're going to say. You can't drink, you can't have gay sex. Yeah. What are they going to do with those stadia? Where do you do it?
Well, you know, if we hosted the World Cup, we'd use some of our own stadia already that we've got, but we'd use any new ones, wouldn't we? But they're not going to be using many of those in the years to come, I wouldn't have thought.
No. Well, they can knock them down and build some more. They're doing well money-wise. That's not a problem.
No, and what about this idea of a sort of drinking zone? Is that a reasonable compromise where the authorities will say, look, we don't tolerate alcohol consumption in this country, but if you just do it in that tent over there, we'll accept it?
It would be a good compromise. A better compromise would be not holding your sporting event in a place where it's illegal to be homosexual.
That would be so weird, like a little drinking zone, like an England flag, like a kind of Epcot centre of alcoholism. That's the little England area.
Well, they also need a marquee where you can be a gay person.
Yeah, that would be really nice. It's true. And then maybe an area where women are free. Who knew? OK, on to Saturday's Metro and the nightmares of pornography, Steve.
Oh, yeah, this is the expert opinion. No, this is the deepfake porn, where using AI and some kind of computery things, you can add someone's face to a pornographic video. Very lifelike. Apparently, I didn't Google it to find out what we're talking about here, but it's the downside of technology. Why would anyone be inventing this other than for nefarious means? Because there's no upside to deepfake porn. It's not saying, oh, we'll let these adult performers work from home. Just send us a headshot and we'll do the rest. The article looks at some people who've been affected. There's Kate Isaacs, who found that someone had added her face to an image, a video. And it must be such an intrusion, one that I'm fairly sure is never going to happen to me. But imagine what it's like to suddenly find you're watching a video of you doing something that you have no memory of. So there'll be some horrible disorientation in that. Yeah. What do you do? But you can't control the technology, really. When the genie's out of the bottle, what you have to do is hope that we can somehow manage to improve people's attitudes to women, because it's mainly going to be women impacted by this.
As you know, I've seen you naked, and if you were doing pornography, it's not your face I would change. But I just wonder whether this technology is now the genie out of the lamp. I mean, the bottom line is that there's no going back from this. You can essentially, and if people don't know, this is remarkable software that allows you to perhaps take a standard pornographic film and put Tom Cruise's face on the guy and Julia Roberts' face on the woman.
You've given this a lot of thought.
Yeah.
Those are Mark's preferences.
Random examples.
Yeah. Can I just say, Steve...
Just be glad I chose a heterosexual
Just to address your point, there's no upside to it. Unless you're the owner of Mr. Deepfakes and they're presumably making money off it, that's the only upside. But yeah, but on a serious note, it's horrible. The stuff she went through, the woman in this article, they threatened her and all kinds of things, as well as making this deepfake of her, because she was campaigning against pornography, especially like child pornography stuff. They got revenge on her through this, so it's horrific.
It is horrific indeed. On that, we are united. That's it for part 2. Coming up, we've got modern-day parenting gone mad, Channel 4 cancellations, and the latest update on the most important stories circulating the press. The chess anal beads saga. Find out more shortly.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around. With all the biggest topics and guests, you will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Mark Dolan, your first look at tomorrow's papers. Tonight in the company of two comedians, also two good friends of mine, Steve N. Allen and Nick Dixon.
Didn't know that.
Oh, who knew? There you go. And on that bombshell, back with Saturday's Mirror, and Netflix are channeling their inner Liz Truss with U-turns. Nick?
Yeah, so Netflix adds disclaimer under the Crown's trailer for Series 5 in U-turn after backlash, and they're adding this thing that says it's a fictional dramatization inspired by real-life events. But it won't be on the phone, and it won't be in other places on the Netflix app. It'll just be on the trailer. And people like Judi Dench and John Major have called for this because they're saying it's depicting things that aren't real and everyone thinks it's real. In fact, someone came up to me just the other day and said, oh, this happened, and they just assumed it was true, but it was something in the Crown that was not necessarily true. They do things like, they pretend like she had a bad relationship with Harold Macmillan and just loved all the Labour PMs, things like this that aren't really true, and other more serious things. So yeah, I think they should add a disclaimer. What's the problem? I mean, loads of films that say this is based on true events, but scenes have been changed, blah, blah, blah. Why not put that at the start of it and end all the chaos and confusion? And by the way, I like the first two seasons with Claire Foy. After that, I got bored of it.
Is anyone upset about this, though? Because...
Me, I'm furious.
But the idea of there being a disclaimer, I mean, yeah, and you live through the 3 seconds that it's on screen and you plough on. I mean, maybe you're upset by the fact it's not on the mobile app version. But also, I mean, I've got a big slice of thinking, you know what, if you don't realise that this is a dramatisation, why are you watching The Crown and yet you don't know what The Crown is? Well, that's right. And also, if you've got half a brain on you, you'll know that any depiction of a historical event seen through the format, the genre of drama is never going to be entirely accurate. If it's a drama, it's not history, is it? Yeah. It's an interpretation of history.
Yeah. Have you not noticed with The Crown that people really fall for it because it uses real events and seems so convincing?
But it's not a documentary, is it?
People think it is.
It's a dramatisation.
But those people are fools, and should we have policy for fools?
And also...
One of them was one of our producers. I'm going to tell him.
Are there not double standards from anti-woke campaigners who are so triggered by trigger warnings all the time? So don't you fall into the same trap of being bothered by this...
Oh, you think I'm asking for a trigger warning? It's not me, though, is it, Mark? So many films say the thing I've just said. Isn't that standard on a film based on a true story, but blah, blah, blah? I'm not saying they have to have it. I don't care. I'm not going to fall for it, am I? But my IQ's like 137 minimum, but...
137?
Well, I did a test. What was yours?
138.
I knew it. I knew it was going to be that.
I'm like Boris Johnson. I'm still in single digits, but I'm working on it. I've got nice hair. Yeah, I mean, I've, as you say, I've not really got past the first series, so I've not really got skin in that game.
I'll tell you how it ends.
Go on, then. No plot spoilers, please. Saturday's Metro now and Channel 4 cancel culture. Steve?
Kind of. Krishnan Guru Murthy... I don't know if you've seen this story. Hot mic issue referred to MP Steve Baker using a very rude word that people often only use accidentally when talking about the Chancellor. The story is all about how he's been suspended, won't be let back. But actually, you read the details, he's not back until the 4th of November. They say due to pre-existing leave, whether this is a little bit of gardening leave, keep your head down for a while. Some people were unkind and said that Kristen shouldn't have said this because he's a newsreader and that fact is not news to many people. But other than that, it's not really a story because it's basically a suspension without calling it.
I believe we've got the audio. Let's take a listen. We've bleeped out the bad word, which is the C word.
Steve Baker, thank you very much indeed. Thanks a lot, Steve. It wasn't a stupid question, Steve. You know it. I'm very happy to go up against you on Truss any day. What a
Should this man be cancelled for what sounds to me like a human moment, Nick Dixon?
He shouldn't, Mark. Full disclosure, I've met Steve Baker. I like him. He seems like a good guy. And based on what I've seen of Mr. Guru Murthy, he probably matches the description more accurately. But he shouldn't be sacked. I don't think he even is. Like I think you said he may be back anyway in November anyway. But in media, people can say things. You can be on a hot mic. If I really said what I thought of you two guys, I'd be cancelled. And you have to be so careful.
Great TV, by the way.
It would be, but it'd be like going in a blaze of glory. But you have to be so careful in media. So I do feel... I mean, I don't like Channel 4, really. I don't like their coverage. I find it biased. But I don't think he should lose his job.
No, Krishnan Guru Murthy has tweeted after a robust interview with Steve Baker MP, I used a very offensive word in an unguarded moment off air. While it was not broadcast, that word in any context is beneath the standards I set myself, and I apologise unreservedly. I have reached out to Steve Baker to say sorry. Baker has accepted the apology.
I love it how he says the standards I set myself, though, as if they're so high, not saying like the worst swear word to a politician on TV. It's not like this, it's not Olympian standards, is it? But I still think he shouldn't be sacked.
There you go. We can agree on that. Sticking with the Metro. And Nick, do you find your smile infects others?
I do. People love my smile. And a study finds smiling is infectious and typically passes on to 3 people. So don't let Sage find out, they'll ban it. It's the new airborne virus, Mark. So, yeah, they did research on 2,000 Brits. Brits probably smile less than many people, I imagine, but it doesn't mention that. They found that 62% said a simple smile from someone left them feeling more confident, and 36% said it made them want to do something nice for someone else. So we should all smile, Mark, even though there's nuclear war and everything's falling apart.
Some of those self-help books tell you just to smile even when you're sad. But the only problem is it makes you look like a nutter, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The idea being that when you're happy on the inside, you smile, and therefore if you do the muscle thing, it tells your body, I've read the same books, come on, we're all comedians, we're all miserable on the inside. But I would say sometimes it's worth putting the extra effort in to look miserable. This story presumes I want to make 2 or 3 other people smile. Wait your turn. Earn your own smile.
You make hundreds of people smile every night.
When the show finishes.
Correct. I've been Stephen Allen. Good night. There you go. Well, look, taxi for Steve and Nick. Let's move on now to this one. It's a fascinating story. Saturday's Mirror. And I don't know about you, Steve, but I'm not opposed to being called naughty. I made a good living from it.
Many of your usernames include that, apparently. But this is about how you raise your kids. A subject close to my heart. I got this child, 7-month-old. I love that little...
Right, let's rephrase that. I have a child. I've got this child. Sounds like you've acquired the child somehow.
It's mine.
Got hold of this child.
As we were saying earlier, I love him dearly, which is weird. We've only known him for 7 months and we've not really talked.
But you have to look after Leo's child as well now, don't you?
Yeah, making the GB News creche.
Yeah, it's
the only way to make money in this business. You do get paid for childcare. However, this expert says that you shouldn't use the phrase naughty to a child and says it's as bad in terms of abuse as hitting the child. No, it's not. So that's the counter-argument to that. Because it's not, is it? Give me a choice between you hitting me or calling me naughty. Maybe do both, actually. But we know what you're like. The whole article then goes on, she's a cognitive behavioural therapist, and then says that even words like good could cause damage. Well, pick a lane. You can't call the kid naughty or good. Or you just sit in silence? How's he ever going to learn to speak?
Well, this is a very hands-off, sort of libertarian approach to parenting in which you just let the child be who they are.
Yeah.
And there also was a book out about parenting a few years ago, and it was written by a top psychologist, and she said, and we interviewed her on the radio, and she said that it's wrong to make a child say thank you for things. Have manners at the table.
If you want to breed an absolute monster.
Yeah.
I mean, because this child will have to live in the real world. I've got a friend who their partner didn't like to use the word no around kids. It's such a negative thing. Yeah, but you're going to live in a world where the word no has meaning. And if you can't be told no as a child, you're going to have anger problems when you get told no and you're a 6'2", 25-year-old bloke, and then all of a sudden there's a bigger problem. You know, the world has to require some of these rules.
Yeah. What's going on, Nick?
Yeah, it's Rousseauian nonsense. The idea that we're just best completely free and we'd just all be perfect. Children need discipline, like you've said. Otherwise, they become monsters. I've got some kids live near me, and you never see their parents ever. They scream all day. This idea, the idea you can't even be good. She's saying here, so many adults feel the need to be good. Yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah. What do you want? Just total anarchy and chaos. It's like, I think you touched on it. It's like Jordan Peterson would say, like, it's a great way to make your child hated. Like, if your child will be hated because they won't be able to follow normal patterns of behaviour.
Your Jordan Peterson's very close to your Kermit.
Well, they always say that he's like Kermit.
All right. Then I think I can feel a sketch coming. I could write that for a different...
Is this also part of a movement that's undermining the rights of parents to raise their children as they see fit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it should.
The attack on families, the attack on parents.
Absolutely. It's the attack on the family. It should be iron Victorian discipline, Mark.
No, because stuff's happening. I don't want to take us down the sort of trans rabbit hole, but in Scotland, for example, legislation has been drawn up that would allow children at primary school to choose their own pronouns and their own names, independent of the wishes of the parents. I just wonder, am I putting two and two together and coming up with
you're
four?
right.
Nearly made it a show without a trans issue. Honestly, I read through these stories going, oh, look at this, not 3 tonight, but you managed it. Of course you did.
Yeah, but do you not think we demonise parents slightly now?
Absolutely.
With
It's undermining the family, absolutely.
But the counter to your first point, like, is this taking away the rights of the parents? No, you can ignore this cognitive behavioural therapist. Like, I'm still in charge of, I will be saying no to my child because I want him to be a good person.
Yeah.
And I'll say he's good, because he's pretty good. So just ignore advice if you don't like it. Don't cry about it.
Ignore advice. I like the sound of that. Sign me up. Turning to the Times now, and a first with British bison births. Nick.
Yes, wild baby bison is first in UK for 1,000 years, and they didn't even realise they had these 3 female bison, but they didn't realise one was already pregnant and gave birth. And it's been said before, life finds a way, Mark. This is the Jurassic Park of bison. And they didn't realise, and it already proves that they're dangerous people and clueless, that they didn't realise this bison was pregnant. And these rewilding people are extremely dangerous. I'm from the country. These are invariably city people. They don't understand what it's like. They don't understand what we deal with in the country. Like, oh, let's bring wolves into the country. Let's not, because they'll kill all the farmers' sheep, and now I have to walk around worrying about wolves. So let's not do that. And a cab driver gave me a very interesting bit of information the other day, and I get all my information from taxi drivers. And he said, he was talking about the future dystopia, the WEF, etc., the smart cities we're all going to have. And we all know that's all going to happen. But he added this detail I didn't know. He said they'll be surrounded by wild animals. So you'll be trapped in your smart city, eating the bugs in your freezing cold house. And you can't get out because wild animals will pounce upon you.
I bet you asked him to take a longer route. When you have a conversation like that, it's just a great day for you.
Oh yeah, he was very base, but he went actually a little bit far even for me, Steve. But the wild animals thing is interesting. Is that why they're doing it?
Yeah. No, surely not. If your conspiracy theory is right, why don't they just do that animal thing right on the last day? You don't need to start it now. It'd be easy just to release them.
I was reading recently America had about 50 million bison 300 years ago, and they were just wiped out. But it's sort of an interesting counterpoint to the climate change debate with regard to livestock.
But isn't that natural? If they got wiped out, would you bring them back, Mark?
Yeah. If I was hungry, I would. Saturday's Independent now. Bison burger, who not? Why not? Saturday's Independent, and more sustainable options are appearing to keep the mob happy, it seems. Steve, tell me more.
Yeah, I imagine in other papers they'd approach this from the angle of this newfangled Zara trying to be woke and save the planet and all the keywords we know people don't like. They've come up with the idea of launching a pre-owned service for shoppers to resell, repair and donate items.
Love it.
If only there was some other model of shops that maybe would help charities, that would take in clothes and then sell. Anyway, so imagine that.
It'll never happen. That's a pipe dream.
This is newfangled and woke because it's new.
Are they characterising it as woke?
No, this is in the Independent, so they are absolutely loving it. But it's such an old idea, but because it's being called this pre-owned service. Oh, I think you just mean charity shop. But it's Zara, and I don't fit in any of their clothes, so I do really care. So that's the two angles I've got on this. But it's good. We shouldn't be just making a thing to wear a few times and throw away.
Definitely.
That's a bizarre way to run an economy. So it's good that you can get stuff repaired. So.
And it's cheaper than a new item, I'm assuming.
I presume so, but again, Zara, so I'm still not going to...
Let's not get carried away.
Yeah, we've come full circle back from the disposable economy. We're going back to the mending economy. That part I do approve of, but the part I don't approve of is the reason is it's because of carbon footprint, so it's green stuff. So obviously I'm against it because I'm against the climate.
Yeah, you've heard it.
Yeah, but you must admit the carbon footprint of the textile industry, the fashion industry is outrageous.
It's out of control. I can't sleep because
and the pollution as well.
Yeah.
Have you seen those pictures of rivers in China close to denim factories? And it's just a lake of horrible blue water, denim blue dye.
Even with that, when you wash them the first time, it absolutely ruins everything. You think they could do that for you?
You'd hope, and you'd sacrifice a few fish along the way. How about this story? And it's the Metro now. With the story you've all been waiting for, the big one. It's here, people. Anal beads. Nick, tell me more.
Yes, anal beads chess master sues world champion for $100 million. Sounds like Dr. Evil. It's $100 million. So this was the Magnus Carlsen story we've covered before. He accused this guy, Hans Niemann, of cheating via vibrating anal beads, perhaps, and he walked out of the game. He said, I'm the greatest chess player ever. How dare you beat me? You must be cheating. And he has admitted to cheating in many online games. But Niemann says, well, everyone cheats in online games. Even top players are known to cheat in online games. I've never cheated in the real game. And Magnus Carlsen could be in a bit of trouble because he's being sued here. I think he has that much evidence that the guy actually cheated. So he could be in a bit of trouble. But I'm not sure where the $100 million comes from, because would you ever earn that in chess anyway? Is that his projected earnings that he's now lost? I'm not sure.
I don't know. The only reason I play chess is for the beads. I'm impressed that anyone could play chess and keep that stoic face to not give away the fact that they're receiving a message.
It's true.
Yeah, I certainly couldn't.
It's the poker face, isn't it? Well, let me tell you, full disclosure, I'm wearing some anal beads as we speak, and I've never felt better. Top of the world.
Who's got the remote control?
It's giving me the twinkle in my eye. On to Saturday's Express now, and every husband will be able to somewhat relate to this headline, I fear, Steve-O.
My wife will kill me. Man spends £3,500 making Liz Truss dog toys. Spoiler alert, they're not. I don't know, but are they worth more now? You know, like there were some figures that were made from when Star Trek Next Generation came out and they got some of the designs wrong, which meant they ended up being worth more. And there's some 50p's where there's a printing error or something, and they're worth more. So actually, you know, if you are watching at home, and I'm sure he's not, he's in the middle of a row about the fact that he spent this money making dog toys that are Liz Truss themed. However, I think maybe they're worth more. They're collector's items.
Yes, they are, and as is his divorce.
Yeah, he spent all this money on dog toys, and she's obviously left as PM. I bet he wishes he could retrieve her.
That is good.
Retrieve her.
You're like a dog with a bone tonight.
Thank you. Like a dog, retrieve her.
Last but not least, let's stay on our outgoing Prime Minister, and let's have a look at this. It's The Telegraph, with the only story rivaling the new Tory leadership race, and it's Liz versus lettuce.
Liz the lettuce beamed onto Parliament, so you've probably seen the lettuce that outlasted Liz Truss. The Daily Star started it, I believe. It's been beamed onto Parliament. I don't know if we've got a picture, but and there's an interesting stat that Liz Truss will have lasted 52 days by the time she leaves, but her campaign lasted 54 days. So it took longer to elect her than it did to get rid of her. Poor old Liz, there's the lettuce. And I feel bad for Liz. I feel bad for the lettuce. I just feel bad all around, really.
By the way, she's having a drink tonight, isn't she?
Do you reckon?
Yeah. I mean, she's got a week to go. She's demob happy, I would have thought.
Do you think she'll ever eat lettuce again?
I doubt it.
Every time there's she has to order it not on there, because it's in so many foods. Have a burger, you know.
But I think she's finishing Theresa May's sherry now, don't you think?
She could do one of those adverts. You know, like when they did this, was it like Gareth Southgate, whoever did the pizza advert? She could do like a McDonald's advert in the future, and she'll be like, no lettuce, and everyone will laugh.
Yeah.
In about 5 years, when people are over it.
And that's why she shouldn't claim that £115,000 a year, because she can make the sweet McDonald's money.
You're right.
But she is doing now what we'd all love to do, which is basically a week in Downing Street just mucking around.
No, but I think that's what she did in her first week, and that's exactly what she's not going to tell anymore.
That's the worry.
Yeah.
But if you were there now, Nick, you'd be sliding down the banister. Putting selected works of art into your rucksack.
Yeah, I'd have as much lettuce as I could eat.
I would have thought so. It's obviously a fascinating story. I mean, one to watch, isn't it? Who's going to replace her? Briefly, this is a very rare, serious moment to show political predictions. Who's our Prime Minister next Friday, Stephen Allen?
I think somehow it ends up being Rishi Sunak.
OK.
No, it's Boris. Hasta la vista, baby.
He said he'll be back. Well, I will be back tomorrow, because we're doing Headliners tomorrow and Sunday and 11 o'clock every single night. Thank you for your company. Thank you to the brilliant Steve N. Allen and Nick Dixon for a delightful show. Tomorrow, I'm delighted to welcome Sajila Kershi and Leo Kearse. So we look forward to that. And I'm back tomorrow at 9 with Mark Dolan tonight. And there's only one story in town. It's the race for number 10. See you then.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no